AWS Elastic Beanstalk Service hands-on demo. In this section, let's go ahead and get our hands dirty and do some Elastic Beanstalk service. So what are the objectives? We will go ahead and familiarize ourselves with the Elastic Beanstalk console. We'll also launch an application instance. In fact, we'll go ahead and launch 3 application instances, 3 different ones. Don't forget, you launch an application instance first, and then inside it is where you launch the environments. Then we'll go ahead and launch a single instance Java server dev environment. This will be a Tomcat environment. And then we'll go ahead and deploy an application into this dev environment. We'll then go ahead and access the application through the browser. And then finally, we'll go ahead and clone the dev environment to create a test environment. And then towards the end, we'll go ahead and try to log in into the underlying EC2 instance, because we know that in Elastic Beanstalk, when it actually creates an environment for you, it actually launches EC2 instances. And you have the opportunity to log into the EC2 instance to see what's going on underneath it. All right, so let's go ahead and do it. Here's the live demo. Here I am logged into my AWS console. I'm in the Oregon region. Go click on the EC2 instances. I have one EC2 instance running at this particular point. Let's go ahead and click on Elastic Beanstalk. One of the first things we need to do with Elastic Beanstalk is to create a new application. So let's go ahead and create a new application. I'm going to create an application called Jumbotron-app. This is my Jumbotron app. That's a description which is optional. Next, I can go ahead and launch the web server environment or the worker environment. I'm not going to do that right now because I want to make a point about application. So I created an application called Jumbotron app. I can create as many applications as I want. So let me go ahead and create another application. Go to create new application. And this time I'm going to create something called Yoko Nomo app. Another app. Next. Done. So that's the second app I created. Let me go ahead and create another app. Zoomily. Zoomily is the third app I'm going to create. This is the Zoomily app. That's the description. I'm done. So what I've done is created 3 applications. Remember, an application is really a container where environments are launched. So now we need to launch an environment. Now, before I launch the environment, let me actually talk about the application. So let me go ahead and switch to my Eclipse. I've been building an application. I have an application called Jumbotron. It's a very simple web application. If you look at the web content, I'm using JSP pages. I'm also using a servlet. If you look at the assets and the distribution, I'm using Bootstrap. I'm actually using Bootstrap. That's in the distribution. That's for my UI. Okay, so let me go ahead and launch my application. Let me go ahead and close my index.jsp and the health JSP. I'll talk about health check JSP in the next section. Here's my index.jsp. I can launch the application locally. I'm going to go ahead and click on run as a server. Here I am running the application. The server is running locally. It's running Tomcat on port 8080. The name of the application is Jumbotron. As you can see, I can access the application. That's great. I can demonstrate the application to you. I can type in karthik.shamsundar@gmail.com. When I do that and put my password as secret, it should log me in. It says login successful. If I type in a wrong password, it should say login failed. It's a very simple application with a servlet in it. The servlet source code is under Java, sources, source. There's my login servlet right there. Very simple servlet source. All right, you get the idea. So I have my application working. Now I want to demonstrate this application to my customers. So what do? Well, one of the first things that I can do is go to my Jumbotron application in Eclipse, to File, and export the application as a WAR file. Export. I'm going to export it as WAR. Next, I'm going to put it in my home directory. I'm going to put it in my home directory. I'm going to call it jumbotron-version1.war. Finish. I saved it. If I go back to my home directory, pwd ls-l, oh, this is the one I just created. Let me go ahead and delete the older one. rm, this one, this is the older one. Okay, so I have jumbotron version1.war. That's my war file. I would like to deploy this in my Elastic Beanstalk environment. In order to deploy it in Elastic Beanstalk, I have to create an environment. So I'm going to go ahead and create one. So create an environment. I can say create one now, or I can go ahead and say launch new environment. Either way is fine. So I'll go ahead and say launch new environment. Okay, so it says, what kind of environment do you want? Do you want a web server environment, or you want a worker environment? Remember, we talked about this. The web server environment is the one that's going to be the client server protocol environment, whereas the web worker environment is the one where it's going to pull messages off the message queue and then process the messages off the message queue. We'll go ahead and create a simple web server environment. So click on create web server. At this point, we have the option of choosing a platform. We go ahead and pick the platform. I'm going to choose Tomcat. It's a Java web application. If you click on let us know, they actually ask you, hey, if there is an environment that you want us to support, can you tell us what it is? Then we'll go ahead and try to support it in the future. Right, let's cancel. And now it says change platform version. By default, it's choosing Tomcat 8 on Java 8 on 64-bit Amazon Linux machine. But I can click on change platform version, and I have the opportunity to choose a slightly different platform. For example, here I'm able to choose which version of Tomcat. It could be Tomcat 8 or Tomcat 7, and also which version of JDK I want, Java 8 or Java 7, and also some option in terms of different versions of Amazon Machine Image, Amazon Linux. So I'm going to go ahead and pick the latest one. And then it asks me, what is your environment type? Remember, there are two environment types. There is the single instance environment type or the load balanced environment type. The single instance environment type is the simple environment where you get a single application server for you to run. Let's go ahead and choose that for the time being. And then in the next section, I'll talk about the more complex environment, which is the load balanced environment. Click on that, click next. It says, do you have an application to deploy? Now, if you don't, then there is a sample application that gets deployed for you to check it out. Otherwise, you can click here and choose an application. We already have an application. We could choose that. I'm not going to choose that right now. Or an application could have been uploaded in Amazon S3, and you can go ahead and point to the S3 application, the zip file or the WAR file, and we'll load it from there. That's an option too. Let's go ahead and choose the sample application for now. Click on next. It says, what is the name of the environment? I'm going to say it's the Jumbotron app environment. I'm going to notice it says -env. I'm going to call it dev. So this is the Jumbotron app dev environment. Notice there's an environment URL. This is the URL that you're going to use in order to access the application. This is actually a DNS name, Jumbotron app-dev.elasticbeanstalk.com. You have to choose a name that's unique. All right, so we have done that. Let's go ahead and click on the next button. All right, now you can also create a database if you want, an RDS instance if you want. We're not going to do that. You can also create the environment inside a VPC. We're not going to do that. Let's click on next. So at this point it says, what instance type do you want? So I have the opportunity to choose whatever instance type I want. I'm going to go with t1.micro, but if you want to be doing scalability, like vertical scalability, you may want to choose a bigger version. You also have the option of choosing an EC2 key pair. It's not really necessary for you, but if you want to be able to log into the actual EC2 instance, then you may want to choose a key pair. I'm going to go ahead and choose an existing key pair called Mr. Velo. Click on that key pair. you have the opportunity to get notified of your environment. So I'm going to put my email address, karthik.shamsundar@gmail.com. And then in terms of health reporting, there is the basic or the enhanced. We'll go ahead and take the enhanced version. Now in terms of disk, because you chose T1 Micro, you get some basic disk. But if you want, you can change your disk capacity too. You can go to magnetic, and you can also select how much storage you want. You can go to general purpose, SSD. You can go to provisioned IOPS, depending upon how you want to scale it. Let me go ahead and choose the container default, which is whatever the T1.micro container gives. I'll take that. But otherwise, I have the opportunity to put in the number I want in terms of the storage for my EC2 instance that's going to be created for my environment. Click on next. Oops, I said enable to give the size. I'll go ahead and take that off. That's better. Okay, and then environment tags. You can pass whatever tags you want to your application. I'm going to pass a tag called environment, and I'm going to call it dev. This is something that can be picked up as system.getProperty in your application. Click on next. And then it says, what is your instance profile and service role? So it needs to have access to, this is the Elastic Beanstalk. Elastic Beanstalk needs to have access to create instances, have access to S3 so that it can upload the log files over there. So there's a few default roles that are available for you. Just pick the default. Click next. At this point, it's ready to launch an environment for you. And now let's go ahead and launch the environment. It's launching it right now. All right. So it's launching the environment. So to kind of review what's going on at this particular point, we went into Elastic Beanstalk. We created an application called Jumbotron app. In fact, we created 3 applications. We created Jumbotron app, Yokonomo app, and Zoomily app. But inside the Jumbotron app, we are creating an environment. It's a dev environment that we are creating. If you want, you can actually go to Elastic Beanstalk and you can actually see the apps, the 3 apps, and then the environment that's being created. Notice the environment is gray. It's color coded, which means it's not ready yet. And if you click on it, you can see it's coming up. There are also messages that are coming up. These are the messages that it's launching. It'll take a few minutes for it to launch. And by the way, that is going to be the URL that I can click on to actually access the environment from my browser. So let me go ahead and go to Elastic Beanstalk. Just leave it right there. Once the environment is done, it should turn green. But I actually like to click on the environment itself and watch the environment go by. It's still working on creating the environment. It's been a couple of minutes. You can also click on refresh here. Okay, the health check became okay. The application should be ready. Go to Elastic Beanstalk. There it is. The environment is up and running. Everything is good. It took us about 3 minutes to launch the environment. So we have an environment ready to go. As you can see, it's an environment tier of web server. It's running a sample application. And this is the URL. So let's go ahead and try to access the application. It's Jumbotron app.dev. I could actually select this and type that in. Oh. Select that and type that in. Let's see if it comes up. That should be the sample application. There it is. Congratulations. The sample application is up and running. So what we have here is in Elastic Beanstalk an application environment called Jumbotron, which has a dev environment in it, and we have launched an application. We are able to access the application right here. Okay, so what I would like to do is deploy a new application. So let me go ahead and click on the environment, and I would like to deploy a new application. If you recall, I've already built an application. I would like to deploy that. So upload and deploy. I would like to deploy it from my local workstation. So I'll go ahead and select the application, choose file. It's in my home directory. It's called Jumbotron version 1.0. Click on it. So the version label is right there. Deploy. So now the application is going to be deployed in the Tomcat environment. There it is. It's deploying the application. The environment is being updated. If I go back to my Elastic Beanstalk, it's green. Let me go ahead and try to access the application. Reload. Hasn't deployed the latest one yet. Still running the old one. It says environment update is starting. And by the way, you can also click on the app and then you can get to the various environments. Deploying new version to the instance. There it is. Hasn't done it yet. So you can see there's all these monitoring logs that are coming up. These are the events. Well, sometimes it's easy to kind of quickly check to see if it has already loaded up. Not yet. There it is. It's loaded up. Okay, so if I go back, there it is. It's perfect. It's done. Yeah, the application has been deployed. And this is running in the Elastic Beanstalk environment. Okay, so if I type in karthik.shyamsundar@gmail.com and type in secret and sign in, there it is. It was successful. So we have an application environment running and we have deployed the application. Cool. Now what I would like to do is go back to the EC2 instances and show you that there's actually an EC2 instance that was created. Here's the EC2 instance that was created right here. That's the EC2 instance. Notice it has its own Elastic IP and it has a key pair associated with it, so I can actually log into it. We'll do that in a few minutes. Now before I do that, what I would like to do is launch another environment. So let's go ahead and try to go to Elastic Beanstalk and launch another environment. And this time I'm going to do something interesting. I'm going to go ahead and clone the existing environment. So I'm going to say, go to the environment itself. I'm going to say actions, clone environment. And this time I'm going to say I'm going to clone this environment to become a test environment. So it's going to be called Jumbotron test. And I'm going to say it's the test environment. Everything else is pretty much the same. Notice the URL is different and click on clone. All right, click on clone. So the cool thing about it is now the complete dev environment, in this case it just happens to be one machine, will be replicated into the test environment, including the application. So once this environment comes up, that's available for users to test. So notice how easy it'll be for you to promote an environment from dev to testing. It's coming up. If you want, you can click on the environment and see what's happening. So as you can see, it's going through the process of launching the machine and installing the software. Let's go ahead, stay right here. All right, it turned green after about 3 minutes. That means the environment is ready to go. The health check is working. It's good to go. So as you can see, I have the dev environment and the test environment. Let me go ahead and go to the environment. Do a reload. There it is. So that's working too. So now we have the dev environment with the right code, and we have the test environment with the right code. Perfect. Now what I would like to do is deploy a newer version of the application. Let's see how that works. So I can go back and I can change my version number in my Eclipse environment. So let me go to the web content, go to index.jsp page, change this from version 1.0 to 2.0, save it, and then just test it out locally. Run as on server. There it is, it's 2.0, and I'm going to go to my Eclipse, do file, export as var next, and we'll call it would be in my home directory as version 2. Save, finish. So go back and do an ls-l. You see version 2.war. So what I would like to do is go back to my Elastic Beanstalk environment, and I would like to put the new version of the app in the dev environment. The testers are testing the version 1. Now I'm going to upload version 2. Click here, upload and deploy. I'm going to choose version 2, open, deploy. It's going to deploy version 2 now. All right. As you can see, while version 2 is being deployed, it turned gray. It's color coded. The environment is being updated. And in a minute or so, it will turn green. That means it's ready to go. That would be environment. Then the dev environment would have the new code. There it is. It turned green. It has the newer code. If I go to the dev environment, if I do a reload, there it is. I see version 2.0. And this is still in version 1.0. That's the test environment. Okay, so as you can see, how Elastic Beanstalk has multiple environments within an application. Okay, so what I would like to do now is show you how internally there are EC2 instances. We have 3 EC2 instances. One was the first one, and then these are the 2 new EC2 instances that got created for the 2 new environments, the dev environment and the test environment. There it is. Okay, so what I would like to do is log into the dev environment machine. Click on the dev environment machine. That's the IP address right there. And it has a key of Mr. Velo. So let's go ahead and log in. But before I do that, I would like to look at the security groups. Click on the security group. Click on the environment security group. Network security group. And look at the inbound group. You can see that SSH is enabled, which means I should be able to log in. Go back to my terminal. All right, so I would like to log into the Amazon machine instance. So I would say SSH -i tilde.ssh / my PEM file ec2-user at the machine IP. The reason I'm using ec2-user is because it's Amazon Linux, it's not Ubuntu. Should be able to log into the machine. I logged in. If I do ps-ef grep java, there's Tomcat process running. That's the Java process, which is the Tomcat process. If I do netstat -anp grep listen, on port 8080 Tomcat running, on port 80 probably Apache is running. You can also go to var log. You can go to Tomcat 8 and you can see all the log files for Tomcat 8, which is also available through the console, by the way. So you have complete access to the machine and you can do whatever you want. Okay, so that's Elastic Beanstalk for you. So in summary, we were able to familiarize ourselves with the Elastic Beanstalk console. we were able to launch an application instance. In fact, we launched 3 application instances. Don't forget, an application instance is just a shell under which environments are created. We went into one of the application instance, which is the Jumbotron app application instance, and we created an environment. We created a dev environment. We then deployed an application to the dev environment. We then tested the application using our browser, and then we also made a clone of the dev environment to create a test environment. We tested the test environment also, and then we were able to finally log into the underlying EC2 instance. Hopefully, this gave you a much better idea as to how to work with Elastic Beanstalk.